Daryl, do you know when it is that they're going to, someone's telling me that they're going to have one of the programs now, the building
well,
recording in progress.
He filmed it all, lived here all the time.
oh,
Yeah,
is that coming up soon?
no, we don't have it scheduled yet, but so I don't know what his availability is going to be. So.
Can't wait.
I know you're just yeah, I have the whole plan. That's for me. The plan. Maybe.
Good morning. I was going to give you mine, that's it. I'd rather be surprised.
Like that, better be surprised. Yes.
Okay, so after the rise.
All right. 9 o'clock, 21. We will call the September 20th regular meeting of the Trinity County Board of Supervisors to order. Supervisor Gogan, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to change up the agenda a little bit right off the bat. First off, item 1.2 is going to be pulled because there isn't anyone available to make that presentation today. And we're going to move the sheriff's items 1.3, 1.4, and 1.5 ahead of item 1.1. So, starting off with Sheriff, item 1.3, adopt a proclamation which recognizes Canine Chase upon his retirement from Trinity County. I have to find the correct folder here. Whereas in 2012, the Trinity County Sheriff's Office Canine program reestablished and quickly became an asset to the Sheriff's Office of the County of Trinity, and whereas in March of 2015, Canine Chase began his career with Trinity County Sheriff's Office and was assigned to Corporal Matthews Spallino, and whereas during his career with the Sheriff's Office, Canine Chase has served in the patrol division assigned with his handler as one of our Hayfork resident deputies, and whereas Canine Chase has been trained to detect controlled substances, apprehend suspects, and protect his handler, and whereas Canine Chase has assisted in numerous arrests, assisted in the seizure of thousands of pounds of controlled substances, and over $100,000 of narcotics-related U.S. currency, and whereas Canine Chase has been an asset to the Sheriff's Office and the people of Trinity County, he will be missed. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity commends Canine Chase for his 7 years of dedicated service to the County of Trinity, and hereby wish him a happy and healthy retirement as of September 30th, 2022, duly passed and adopted on this 20th day of September 2022 by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity.
So moved.
Go ahead.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gross?
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, do we want to present these one at a time or all three at once?
Can we do them one at a time so we get a photograph, please? On behalf of the Sheriff's Department, I appreciate the recognition. Corporal Spillino could not be here today. Chase could not be here either. So on behalf of the Sheriff's Department, I'd like to have Sergeant Cavalli accept it, please.
I guess. Okay, item 1.4, adopt a proclamation which recognizes Canine Hank for his years of service with the Trinity County Sheriff's Office. Whereas in 2012, the Trinity County Sheriff's Office Canine Program was reestablished and quickly became an asset to the Sheriff's Office of the County of Trinity, and whereas in October 2018, Canine Hank began his career with Trinity County Sheriff's Office and was assigned to Sergeant Scott Cavalli, and whereas during his career with the Sheriff's Office, Canine Hank has served in the Patrol Division assigned with his handler as one of our Hayfork resident deputies, and whereas Canine Hank has been trained to detect controlled substances, apprehend suspects, and protect his handler, and whereas Canine Hank unfortunately suffered a long battle with several medical conditions and passed away peacefully on March 28, 2022, and whereas Canine Hank was an asset to the Sheriff's Office and the people of Trinity County, he will be missed. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity commends Canine Hank for his 4 years of dedicated service to the County of Trinity as of September 30th, 2022, duly passed and adopted this 20th day of September 2022 by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Supervisor Gross?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown? Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Trinity County Sheriff's Department, I thank you very much for this recognition for our canine program. And Sergeant Cavalli will accept the award. Thank you.
All right. Item 1.5, adopt a proclamation of appreciation which recognizes Canine Johnny upon his retirement from the Trinity County Sheriff's Office. Whereas in 2012, the Trinity County Sheriff's Office Canine Program was reestablished and quickly became an asset to the Sheriff's Office in the County of Trinity, and whereas in July of 2012, Canine Johnny began his career with the Trinity County Sheriff's Office and was assigned to Sergeant Nathaniel Trujillo, and whereas during his career with the Sheriff's Office, Canine Johnny has served in a variety of assignments to include patrol as a member of the Narcotics Task Force, and whereas Canine Johnny has repelled and short has repelled and short-hauled from helicopters during dozens of operations in numerous Northern California counties, has assisted in the seizure of thousands of pounds of controlled substances, assisted in over 300 arrests, and seized over $1 million of drug-related U.S. currency. And whereas Canine Johnny was poisoned by suspects on the Shasta Trinity National Forest in 2015, and awarded the Purple Heart in 2016 after being stabbed in the neck by a fleeing suspect. And whereas Canine Johnny has been an asset to the Sheriff's Office and the people of Trinity County, his dependability and hard work will be missed. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity commends Canine Johnny for his 10 years of dedicated service to the County of Trinity, and hereby wish him a happy and healthy retirement as of September 30th, 2022. Duly passed and adopted this 20th day of September 2022 by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Trinity.
So moved.
Second.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gross?
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
Again, on behalf of the Sheriff's Office, thank you very mumuch for recognizing the dedicated service of Johnny, a folk hero here in Trinity County. So, thank you very much. We're going to miss out.
Front and center. All right.
Wait, can I get another picture with my kids in?
Come on, get a picture with your dad. Chairman Frazier ain't have to require the kids to attend.
We don't fight, they do dog.
Okay. Order to the board, item 1.1, receive an update from the U.S. Forest Service representative regarding matters of interest in Trinity County.
Good morning. I'd like to start off by acknowledging and congratulating Trinity County Sheriff's Department and the Trinity County on such a great canine program, and encourage Johnny into his retirement. I'm a little envious. Looks like he's going to enjoy it. Okay. Here's an update for September 20th. For fire suppression, thank goodness we finally got some rain. Prior to this rain, we were, as you all know, undergoing a significant heat wave. And during that time, the Forest Service, maintained 24-hour staffing for an extended period of time. During that time, we were able to successfully initial attack a fire at 4 a.m. in the morning that ended up being kind of back behind Douglas City, and we ended up working on that fire with CAL FIRE. In addition, just before we got the rain, we had a fire on Highway 36. I say a fire, there were 6 ignitions from trouble with a trailer. Somebody got flat and started 6 different fires, and we were able to contain that at 15 acres as well. So it was a busy week leading right up into until we got the rain. Really proud of all the extra effort that went in by our staff to work extended hours and be successful there. We're quickly evaluating the amount of rain we got. We got more rain here on the west side of the forest than they did on the east side, but we're evaluating how much rain we got as well as the extended forecast to take a look at our fire restrictions. And I expect we should have a decision out really soon. I know it's hunting season and people want campfires. That's not lost on me. Fuels. Brown's Phase 3 project, harvesting's been completed. The area is open for wood cutting. You may have seen some posts about it on our Facebook page. There were several decks that were developed during the harvesting operations, and we actually had the decks, had the limbs, had the tops de-limbed and decked so that they would be stacked and available for wood cutting. Most of the diameters are 4 to maybe 8 inches at the biggest. Shouldn't require any splitting. I want to just remind people to be safe if you're cutting on one of those decks. It's never a good idea to climb onto a deck with a running chainsaw. Fuels contracts and agreements continue to be put together and implemented on both units. The crews, when you are out hunting, especially on the South Fork side of the forest, we had quite a few crews on standby, and those crews, when they weren't out actively fighting fire, were out doing some daylighting and fuels reduction work and dropping hazard trees. So you should notice a pretty significant difference, especially along the 10 road. Got a lot of good work done there. We're working through our prescribed fire planning process, which will include a review of our burn plans. As a result of our active fuels projects we had this summer, we do have a lot of piles that will need to be burned. And we'll be getting that specific letter out to you all really soon. We just have some additional review we need to do due to the Chief's national stand down and relook at prescribed fire. So we've just got some extra review to do to make sure we've got all of our ducks in a row. Ecosystems. The Trinity River Management Unit has finalized planning on, or is finalizing planning on a small project near Carville to address ladder fuels. We're working with the logger to get started on the river complex. The public should expect significant delays during the week on the road that leads to the Boulder Lake Trailhead, and there'll be activity around the Goldfield Campground. We expect to have the Weaverville Community Forest Phase 2 planning effort completed at or near the end of the fiscal year, which for us is September 30th. We're working to modify our current master stewardship agreement with the RCD to include planning, to just elevate our agreement with them to another level, to let them help us with some planning efforts, especially within the Weaverville Community Forest. We're putting together a service contract. We're putting together a service contract to address the downed trees on the 16 road. I know many of you have been out there. Those trees were felled, the hazard trees were felled during the fire, and we're putting together a contract now to get all that material skidded up and decked. On the South Fork, we're busy marking the pilot project. We've had the Trinity County Collaborative Group out there a couple of times. Things are looking good. I expect to have that offering out the first quarter of FY23, so early to mid-October. We're working on putting together fuels contracts in the August fire footprint, and we did get some disaster supplemental money, and some of the harvesting is done over there, so we're looking to follow up with a fuels contract. In rec, we're working with the North Zone to put together a comprehensive trails restoration plan using the disaster supplemental funds. So far this year, we've worked on over 200 miles worth of trails, so that's restoration and rehab work there. And our sign order has come in, so $60,000 worth of signs. You know, we've lost a lot of signs during the last couple of years, so we're looking to get those signs back up on the forest and in good shape. Always, if you run into any signs that you see are looking really bad in the forest, don't hesitate to call the front office over here in Weaverville or in Hayfork. Let us know which sign, and we'll look at trying to get it replaced. The Trinity County RAC had a meeting last night. The RAC is accepting project proposals through September 30th. The RAC has approximately $500,000 to fund projects this year. Public meetings, we will be scheduling our fall public meetings. I'm expecting them to be in late October and early November. And I'll be adding a meeting in Lewiston. The next Trinity County Collaborative field trip will be held October 21st, and that will be in the Burnt Ranch Big Bar area. We had to kind of relocate that one last time because of the Six Rivers Lightning Complex. So we're looking to get back down there and look at some of the work we can do down there. Working on a good neighbor agreement with Trinity County. I'm working on the draft. I've received comments from Trinity County from the Transportation Department. We're reviewing that with our forest engineer as well as our eco staff officer, and so I'm working on a draft to get right back to you guys. And lastly, we're still in the hiring process. So the next positions we're looking at hiring, we have an SAF event that's out right now. That's the Society of American Foresters, both for professional foresters and for technicians and interns. So if you have anyone that's still in college looking to get a degree in resource management, forestry, they would be eligible to apply as well. And we're looking to hire some admin support for the Weaverville office, and that job should come out soon, and I believe it will be open to the public. So that's what I have for an update for you all. I'm sure you have additional questions, and I'm happy to take them.
I just have a couple. So you mentioned the trails, and the North Fork of Coffee Creek has 2 bridges on that. Are you guys looking to rebuild those bridges or to bypass them and go back to the old trail?
You're talking bridges on the trail system?
On the
yeah,
trails.
We're planning on rebuilding those, and we have as a disaster funding came out, it came both in like an ecosystems, fuels reduction, watershed, and then it also came in infrastructure. So those bridges are identified to be repaired or replaced in the infrastructure spreadsheet and in that funding.
Okay, and secondly, and not to, the Good Neighbor Authority, which Supervisor Cox has been working very hard on. But we've been bantering that term around a lot, but I don't think we've ever explained to the public what it really is. So if you could give an explanation to the public or
Sure, I can give a general explanation.
Right.
So the Good Neighbor Authority is an authority that was as part of the Farm Bill was passed, and it enables the Forest Service to work with partners, state or county partners, to accomplish work both on through agreements, both on national forest lands and also on, in this case, what we've been talking about are roads that are county roads, but that go through the national forest, so that work that would be done on that county road would be a benefit to national forest resources. So, for instance, if we improve the drainage system on a county road that's adjacent to a creek, for instance, especially up in the Coffee Creek areas, because I just drove that the other day, that's a good example of where that Good Neighbor Authority would benefit both the county and the national forest. So that's one example. So it's an instrument that allows us to, the agency to put money into agreement and then to work with the county to have the county kind of supervise some of that work that gets done both on county roads, in this case, and on national forests.
Thank you, and thank you Supervisor Cox for picking up the ball on that.
Any other questions?
No, if you could just give me kind of a best of when the meeting is going to be in October, that would be great.
You'll be the first to know.
Oh, will we?
If there's a date that works well for you, don't be afraid to send that to me, and
Do you have a
I'll.
little time frame, maybe one day you're thinking of?
I'm just thinking the last, other than Halloween, kind of that last week in October, or the first week in November. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure. All right. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. All right. Before we move into public comment, I did have one more change to the agenda. I forgot to announce earlier that item 4.2 is going to be pulled because we had some issues with that. So that will be coming up again on October 4th. Is that what you told me earlier?
I plan to work with the department to make sure that we have it correct for the 4th, but I don't want to speak out of turn for them because
Okay.
it's their item. But
so we're planning to have that come back up on the 4th, but there are some things that need to be fixed. So with that, so if
Oh,
anybody.
hey, may I talk to Marie?
No. It's not public comment yet.
Okay, have her give me a call back.
Okay, public comment. This time is for information from the public on matters not appearing on this agenda or within the consent calendar. All comments are limited to 3 minutes and must pertain to matters within the jurisdiction of this board. When addressing the board, please state your name for the record and address the board as a whole through the chair. No action or discussion will be conducted on matters not listed on the agenda. However, the chair may refer the subject matter to the appropriate department for follow-up or schedule the matter on a subsequent board agenda. Do you have any public comment?
Terry Mines, Junction City. Read the water bar is going to close down hours here, you know, because they're having shortage of business. Seems like the situation is getting more bleak. I didn't think that was possible, but the lack of action here is obviously creating an issue. I'm not sure what the board's agenda is at this point anymore. I thought it was to bring economic viability and, you know, like provide an opportunity for kids to have a life and people to live here. I mean, you guys are going down a pretty serious path of, you know, like failure. I'm a person who works really hard. I have a no-fail policy. I won't fail. That's not a sentence, it's not an option for me. I have to feed 4 kids. I think there's a lot of people here also that are in that position, and you guys have let them down drastically. And I think it's not just cannabis. I think this has affected everyone now. I think you're taking the quality of life here to an ultimate low. I mean, at some point you might want to think about resigning, all of you, and giving people a chance that want to fix this community. I don't say this lightly. You guys have destroyed a lot of lives. I mean, I know there's an article came out in the LA Times about Miss Chadwick. I threw the red flag up on that early. I told county council that was going down while I was a supervisor. I think this is an absolute joke that this county was let down like that. I think there's zero accountability, and that buck rests with you guys. It really does. You need to do something and do something proper. Enough of the unethical behavior. You need to straighten this out. You owe it to this community. You guys are all elected by people you know. Okay, so you're not here because you applied for a job. You got here through nepotism. Okay, well, I think you've let down most of the people you know. I can't see there's probably too many people except Miss Albies that's happy around here. Okay, she's the only one I ever hear talk on the speaker that's happy with what's happening. So I think you guys should really take a serious look at what you're trying to do and what your agenda is at this point, because emergency actions are way overdue here. I know you're going to let Letty have a job here that's impossible to do. Her job's going to be the biggest nightmare ever. You owe it to the people of this community to do a better job.
Anyone else?
Chairman, I have no raised hands and no new chats. Oh, and as I say that, I get a raised hand. Jeff?
Hi, Jeff Cadella, Xenia. I'm just wondering how you guys to expect to fund the cannabis department next year when the state money runs out, because you don't have enough licenses issued to support the program. And I'd say that's completely due to Director Connell's failure to issue licenses. The guy's not solution oriented. We need somebody in there who can find solutions and figure things out and run the program effectively. His failure is your failure. And I think you guys need to start holding people accountable for performance. There's a brain drain going on in the county, and I always thought that, yeah, maybe it's difficult to draw talent up here because of the low wages, but that's not the case that I've seen. I think because of the misogynistic attitudes in the higher levels of the cannabis department, the most qualified applicants and some of the brightest people in this county, young people that want to live here and start families here and stay here, are being repelled by the county and working for the county. And they see brighter paths working for nonprofits. And that's a problem. That's a serious problem because we have drastic, like huge incompetence, not only still in the cannabis department, but at all county levels because there's no accountability. You guys don't hold anybody accountable to do their job. And that needs to change. I would love to hear Connell today tell you guys why there's not 5 more licenses noticed that he promised you in the last meeting 2 weeks ago. He promised. He also promised that there would be some accounting to tell you where the funds have gone and how many funds are left from the state running his department. Does he not understand? I mean, you shouldn't have to tell him that without a program he doesn't have a job. You guys are going to have to lay off all the employees you just hired because he won't do his job. He's not solutions oriented. You need a problem solver at all levels of the county, but especially in the cannabis department. Not somebody who sees roadblocks and just throws his hands up and say, that's it. It's a failure. I don't think anybody would call this program a success besides Jill Cox and Jessica Albee, or whatever your name is. I challenge you guys to congratulate him for doing a good job today. That's all I got.
Veronica
from Douglas City. I just want to take an opportunity to say that it is sad when we see businesses start to take a downturn and they continue to work hard. The Water Bar is an amazing business that the locals will need to help support, and all of the businesses here. I do believe that part of the success of the county is going to come from being very diversified in our economic availability or economic opportunities. And I think trying to put all your eggs in one basket is never a good plan. I am really encouraging everyone to continue getting that cannabis program up and running, no matter what anybody else seems to want to throw out there. They like to just chit chat, but I've always been a good supporter of the cannabis program within the county, and I continue to support the legal and ethical support from your county staff and getting the program so where it does benefit the whole of Trinity County, not 1 or 2. And I just wanted to say to the staff to keep working towards that goal. I know I see it every day when I interact with county staff in all different departments, not just cannabis. It's a difficult job when you're dealing with the public and being able to try and support them in a way that doesn't cause frustration. And that's a difficult thing to do in any job, more so when people feel that their livelihood is attached to it. So I simply say this: continue to keep your eye on the prize, which is to get the cannabis program up and running so that our county and our farmers as well as retailers are going to have a successful business within the county, not just any whining. And I also encourage you to continue to look at other ways to bring economic viable options into our county and work on our housing. And I thank all of you for the hard work and research that I know and we see you put into this each and every meeting. So other than that, thank you very much.
And with that, Chairman, at this point, I have no additional chats and no additional raised hands.
All right. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an announcement that to answer one of the questions. The budget that was requested on cannabis will be heard tomorrow, as we always have here during budget hearing times. You can ask questions on where the money goes. I have requested that we go line by line on cannabis. Very few people ever have attended these in the past 5 years. I would encourage that this is the time. If you want answers, this is the time to come and ask. And with that, we hope to see you tomorrow.
Keith, will that include the $3.2 million that we got?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we'll close public comment and move on to reports and announcements. Reports from department heads. Do we have any department heads that wish to report out?
I would, if you wouldn't mind, but I'll let everyone else go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. Typically at the end of each season, I do give a report out on code enforcement related to cannabis, and if it's your pleasure, I could do that now. The 2021 year, there were 124 citations issued. Of those, 67 were voluntarily abated within the 7 days. That's a 54% compliance rate. Those that were not, we were able to get 46 fully executed settlement agreements, meaning that they have consented to abate and not violate the rules going further. And then of the remaining 11 received, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that, 21 received permanent injunctions. So we basically were able to handle most of the ones last year and either have them abated voluntarily or through the court process. As of this year, we have seen 80 citations issued. We're only a quarter into the season, so that's a pretty good number. And of those, 50 have been voluntarily abated within the 7 days. That's a 63% compliance rate. We've already gotten 5 settlement agreements, and we've already gotten 11 permanent injunctions for this year.
The financial side and the fees, or the fines, excuse me, will we have that discussion tomorrow on what's come in, what's still owing?
Yeah, I can be prepared to give that to you tomorrow. I can give you rough numbers today if you'd like.
I can wait till tomorrow. We can do all this at one time so we can stay focused on fiscal issues.
Absolutely.
I will say that within the next week, letters will be going out to anyone who still owes money, so anyone who executed a settlement agreement and has not paid in full. One of the provisions of the settlement agreement, if they don't pay timely, is that it reverts back to whatever their original fine was, which can be quite hefty, particularly since the board modified it and made it from $100 a day to $1,000 a day. So those letters will be going out this week, informing individuals that if they have not paid in full, we will be reverting to the original settlement and going through enforcement process.
And Margaret, is that everybody, no matter how far back in time you were?
Correct. I believe we go back to 2019. 18. Susie provided us a great list last week of those that have not been paid. So we will go back to the original ones and make sure they're all either collected on or we get a judgment and go forward from there.
So we'll revert back to the $100 a day at the time of fine?
Correct. It will be whatever it was at the time. We do have some from 2021. Those will go to the $1,000 a day once after the board adopted that modification.
Good morning. I just wanted to provide a couple of updates for you that we have going on for our office. We had a rough couple of years with some program updates, but these are positive updates. So we had implemented with our unsecured tax roll is our smallest roll that we send out. So we've implemented with that particular one with QR codes and then IVR codes. So those that aren't familiar, it's like a quick response code. So it's a little box that you'll see on different things so that you can scan that with a smart device and then it'll take you directly to our website. You'll be able to see what the status of your bill is, if it's paid or not, if you have questions. And then we have a big part of the community also that prefers to not have that technology, and so we've implemented interactive voice response, so they are able to, you can call and just like prompts like you would if you're paying a bill. So that's something we've implemented too. The next thing that I'm working on for tech updates is for TOT, so that they're able to, the operators are able to submit their returns and then also for their make their payments online as well. And then we also have had, the market's finally starting to change, and so we're starting to see improvements. Like this last quarter was a significant jump as far as interest apportionment goes, which is nice. So I don't see us where we were 10 years ago, but I mean, it is starting to improve, and we're seeing the benefits of that. So just a couple things I thought I would share.
Will you be involved in tomorrow's meeting?
I will.
Okay, so I'll save those financial questions.
Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Supervisors. Christy Anderson, Trinity County Environmental Health Director. I just wanted to give a report out quickly regarding the Drought Task Force. So this is a combination of efforts between Cal OES, Trinity County OES, and Trinity County Environmental Health and other county agencies. Trinity County has a total of 49 larger public water systems that the Division of Drinking Water regulates, and 28 small systems that Trinity County Environmental Health regulates. At this time, outside of fire-affected areas, we have not had any complaints or concerns or stress from those water systems reporting out to us, saying that they're out of water, they need help, etc. Environmental Health also regulates all groundwater wells in Trinity County, and there was an executive order passed which would not allow certain ag wells to be issued. But Trinity County, our water situation is a bit different, so we didn't fall into that category. Officially, we've only had 3 dry well reports for this year in Trinity County, and only 1 recorded so far on the state website. Right now, current state guidance that reflects 15% to, cutting back 15% of usage doesn't yet apply to us, but we have a meeting September 30th, and this may only impact Hayfork and Weaverville at this time. So I will follow up and let you know how that meeting goes, but the state is kind of coming as they're going, and we haven't had regulations regarding that yet. So I know that when I went to the meeting at the end of August, it was only systems that had over 3,000 connections, so we didn't meet those guidelines yet. Any questions?
Yeah, Christy, thank you for coming today. So I did, got it secondhand, but a constituent that their well ran out, and I don't know if they reported it or not, but what help is there out there for people that need that? I've seen some things posted on Facebook, but it's...
So it would depend on whether the county has the need to apply for certain assistance, or if the water systems are big enough that they could handle assistance on their own. There's certain grants through the Department of Finance that were available, and I don't know how much of that is left, but we haven't shown a significant need for groundwater well assistance, etc. I know that Shasta County is dealing with that same grant situation, and it's pretty hard to get through for the county itself as far as how they're helping the constituents. If they call in and report to us, we can put them on the dry water well website or have them directly, but unless people report it, we really don't have the data or documentation that we need to justify.
But that would be their first step.
Yeah.
And then I want to switch gears on you. Now we head into our second big heavy rainy season, I hope. We still don't have the businesses cleared up in the Coffee Creek fire scar.
Yeah.
What's the update on that?
The appeals have been submitted to the state and FEMA, and we're just waiting, but our first application was denied, as were most businesses and commercial properties in California.
So I want to kind of have us dig into, because one of those, in my viewpoint, is more of an Airbnb than it is a resort. When you're just leasing one house, albeit a monstrous house, but it still is just one house, is the state setting the precedent that anybody that rents an Airbnb house and it burns down, they no longer will clean those houses up?
That's a great question, and I myself worry But at the same time, I don't know that I want to go exposing every Airbnb. And so it's this weird, like, I don't know. That's something we should bring up with FEMA directly. We always do like post incident reviews, and that's something that we'll bring up, but it's really hard to get a direct answer. There was a lot of higher up politicians that had heard information and were spreading it to constituents that commercial buildings will no longer be covered, and we didn't get that officially from FEMA, and then FEMA denies that and says that they're being forthcoming with us. So it's this weird gray area with commercial structures.
But if they're saying they are being covered, why aren't they doing the work?
You have to apply for it, and then they denied it.
Deny it.
But I will say in 2020, they approved half of what we supplied them with, even though the half that we applied for were not the most in need. And they approved those and then denied the two that were the most in need. So it's kind of weird, and we've asked the question, like, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to do? And they said, we're doing everything right. So their justification is usually rural, not easy to access. I have debated that and said, well, we have a lot of tourism in those areas. It is easy to access. One of them is on 299, and people have dug through it, a dozen times. So easy to access. So we have those arguments, and we do display that in our letters of appeal.
So this is just me, and I'm not speaking for the board, but for myself, the Airbnb thing really bothers me, and especially as we seem to slowly grow, and I can't imagine the Tahoe Basin, maybe 20% of the homes are done that way. So if we could get some sort of official answer, I appreciate you, sometimes don't poke the bear, but I think that it's important for people that rent homes out in Trinity know that they are or are not at a liability to be stuck with $50,000, $100,000 worth of liability if their place burns down.
Yeah, I know that in some of the high tourism areas, they were denied a FEMA. They were denied FEMA inclusion as a declaration because they did have many Airbnbs and things like that. So you're right, we do need clarity on that. I just don't know the best way to approach that situation, but we'll definitely have that in the works on our questions for FEMA and everything else.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So, Christy, before you go, is this
Am I on? Okay. Is this something that we can't be the only rural county struggling with this? Is this something that needs to be advocated for, like through RCRC, or what kind of help do you need?
I would say that would be very helpful. I'm sure we're not the only ones. I know Siskiyou has recently lost a lot of structures and had a lot of issues. That might be a good county to reach out to. They have some of the same rural issues as we do.
Okay.
Am we on? I was just going to make a statement about emergency water in Hayfork. Sorry, Christy.
Yeah.
So if you run out of water in Hayfork Water District, you can go see Craig Hare, fill out an application. He will come out and evaluate your situation, see how big your house is, how many kids you have dogs, domestic animals, farm animals, and vegetable garden. They will supply you with water, not indefinitely, but until you get your pump, your well, your pipes fixed. He'll come back intermittently to see how you're doing, and you will continue to have water until you get your situation restored, if it's restorable. So for the people of Hayfork, if you do run out of water, you can always go see Craig Hare at the water department there, and he will help out the best he can. Thank you.
Righty. Any other department heads? You on Zoom? All right. With that, we will move to the report from the County Administrative Officer.
Okay, good morning, Chair.
I have a few things I'd like to share with you. I was informed yesterday from the courts department that Friday is a holiday that they observe, and it's the Native American Day. So there will be no marshals available for the courthouse security at the entrance of the courthouse. So, since we have no marshals available, I reached out to Sheriff Saxon. They don't have any correctional officers available also. We are planning on locking the main entrance to the door, providing a sign with the courthouse department phone numbers that they can reach if they need access to get to their department. So I just want to make sure the board knows and the public knows that the courthouse will be open for business, but yet not open to the public to do walk-in without the security. Okay? The second item, I wanted to let you know, Susie and I are still working on our spending plan proposal for the American Rescue Act plan. And so we are hoping we could bring that to you next month with budgets being produced and reviewed. There was just a lot of time constraints. We were not able to present that to you today. So we will be working on that. The union has reached out to me in providing their recommendations, so that is being reviewed as well. Let's see. The general plan is in development. I have been routing to you and the department heads that it applies to some draft chapters. So those are being reviewed and being submitted back to the consultants for the general plan. And September 30th, we are scheduling a special board meeting to provide to you and the public the draft of the strategic plan. So we're getting very close to finalizing that, so that will be presented as well as, it's my understanding, adopting the final budget. And that is scheduled for 10 a.m. And that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Reports from members of the Board of Supervisors. Start out with Supervisor Brown.
All right. Apologize for not being there. I got a little winter bout of poison oak. That wouldn't be much of a pleasure to look at. So, I was at RCRC's annual meeting last week in Napa County. Big emphasis on broadband. Welcome back to that in a minute. The entity of RCRC, Golden State Natural Resource, over the past few years, I've kind of reported that they've been working on this biomass pellet program to turn wood biomass into little pellets that then get shipped overseas to assist with coal plant warm-ups, and it's moving forward. I think their first building is going in Lassen County. They're about to start construction on that. I've pushed for the opportunity for Trinity County to be involved, from the early stages, but the Trinity's topography and things like that. This project is designed to put pellets onto railway cars, trains, and take them to ports. And due to Trinity County's location, we're not obviously a prime opportunity for that. So I have yet to see how this program is going to directly impact Trinity County, but it is moving along. There's an emphasis on the Sierra Nevada region. But it is moving forward. It's kind of the first project of its type in the state of California. And there's a lot of praise with the potential that this could bring as far as assisting with the removal of fuels within forested areas. Electric vehicle charging stations. I believe there's going to be some draft ordinances. If the county is interested, I believe it's going to become a requirement for jurisdictions, areas to have charging stations. So I think this has to go beyond just the Tesla charging station, and I'm not sure if the ones at a rest stop and library are going to fulfill it. We might already be ahead of the game on that, but it's just something to pay attention to. I got to meet staff from GoBiz. And she's in the Humboldt region, and We talked about the what's called the SURF, Community Economic Resiliency Fund, and essentially it's my understanding that we're part of the SCED regional effort, and SCED, and Supervisor Cox maybe speak more to this if I misspeak, but SCED out of Shasta County and Redding is part of the regional, or is in charge of the regional effort to form the economic plan that's going to apply for those SURF funds. And Trinity's always been part of the SCED region. I kind of inquired with the GoBiz if you know, essentially Trinity County should have its own economic development plan, and then we could take our own economic development plan and kind of apply that into the regional plan. So there's opportunity there to kind of refine the needs of Trinity County and to make sure that it's on the forefront of the greater regional area. The Golden State Connect Authority, that is the broadband entity of RCRC, the large economic development, the EDA grant was approved that Golden State had applied for. Trinity's going to be part of receiving some of those funds. There's some moving parts to that and things are still in development. Supervisor Cox might want to speak more to this, but there's essentially a large basket of funds coming from the CPUC that Trinity can use to do a number of things. Data mapping, the strategic plan for broadband, engineering plans and analysis, feasibility studies, things like that, that kind of defaults to having an actual verified broadband strategic plan that's based on data maps of availability of bandwidth. We had great speakers from, I believe it's Utopia that is doing a lot of the digital 299. So we got the great breakdown from Connie Smith, also at Humboldt State, about how the fiber is going through the highway and the opportunities that Trinity County has, the opportunities that other entities within the county has, including our existing internet providers being able to increase their service opportunity for their service providers. So a lot of opportunity there with broadband if we can really harness it and have a strong plan. Other things that RCRC staff reported out on, and they did offer to come and do either a in-person or a Zoom presentation for the county on just a lot of the big issues that are going on, essentially offering a report out to the county as a whole instead of just to their RCRC members at meetings. So maybe I'll go ahead and arrange that for the next board meeting. But big things that happened in legislation is that there are now CEQA exemptions for U.S. Forest Service land projects, especially when they're combined with a good neighbor authority. And so now if you have a NEPA completed on the project, that's going to qualify for being CEQA complete already. So they got rid of having to have a CEQA and a NEPA to do a project on U.S. Forest Service land. So that's to save a lot of time, if anyone knows how long a CEQA process can take. So that's beneficial. Care Court Phase 1 got initiated last week by the state of California. Trinity County did not go into the Phase 1. A number of other smaller counties went into Phase 1, and Trinity County is still analyzing the program, looking at how it's going to be feasible for us to participate and what missing components or finance or staffing resources we need to make sure we can offer this Care Court program without running our existing staffing infrastructure down even further. There was a Cannabis Bill, SB 1326, that was supported and approved that is designed to help with planning for interstate cannabis commerce and the ability for the state of California to start contracting with other states across the country for national cannabis program. Additionally, there's going to be a requirement that every city or county jurisdiction will be required to have some form of medical cannabis, either in the form of delivery or non-storefront retail, but because of the medical side of it and bringing awareness to that, it's not only recreation for some people. This is medical, it's medicine for many people. And so they want to make sure that it is available so people don't have to drive, and so there's less inequity in having access. Let's see, there's a couple other things here. The Board of Forestry is working to eliminate the allowance of wood gates in SRA zones. They're working on what's called a critical zone, which I believe is the first 3 to 5 feet from the exterior of homes, and that's being redefined. Essentially, it's going to be all hardscape. So, worst case scenario is grandma's roses are going to get ripped out if they're within 5 feet of the house. Kind of some small issues like that, like the wood fence and the wood gates. So, luckily RCRC is on top of this, and the big advantage to RCRC is they focus on the rural issues. Although rural now, I think, includes Santa Barbara County and some larger populations. I don't think they've lost sight of really the smaller counties, more the frontier counties, and how they affect us as well. RCRC was interested in hearing about any issues any entity in the county is experiencing, such as the sheriff's office or schools or the county office, in relationship to power safety shutoff events. RCRC would like to hear if there's been negative fallout from essentially PSPS being too strict and too sensitive. A lot of these PSPS events are now triggered automatically by equipment that's built in to the lines connected to a weather station. So if you get a big gust of wind or extremely high temperature spike, all of a sudden the power grid might just shut off. Also, when these shut-off events happen, they are mandated typically to be inspected by person, either by foot or by helicopter. So there can be some timeliness issues, especially for our rural topography areas. So if there are any entities that have a specific story on how on Wednesday afternoon and their tests were almost completed and big gusts came and then everyone failed their test scores in the schools or something like that, it didn't upload, anything like that, feel free to share it with me or send it to the county office. Let's see, I think I'm almost done. There was a great presentation from a fellow named Greg Williams, who lives in the Downeyville area of Sierra County. And Downeyville has always been a mecca of mountain biking. They have, I think, 3 mountain bike races a year for almost the last 10 years, and each one of those races brings in over $1 million+ of economic value into the community. This is a town of less than, I think, 200 people. And they have, I think, 3 mountain bike stores, they have van shuttle services, and they have found a mechanism for bringing local jobs into the area by building mountain bike trails. A lot of their initial funding came from the Sierra Nevada Conservancy to look at their plans for trail expansion. It is very ambitious. I believe they're trying to tie in mountain bike trails from Downeyville up to Susanville, all throughout Lassen, all into Alpine County, essentially making a whole region where you could ride your bike around for days and days at a time. Visit all these small towns, have a little passport program where if you eat at the 2 little diners and then do the thing, you're gonna get a discount or a free hot dog or something like that. They're building incentives for people to ride their bikes around and tour these areas. There's been enormous support from the communities. Over 90% of the community members are excited and happy and enthusiastic about this project, bringing economic value to their area that's been torn up by the fires, especially its connection to Greenville. So maybe consider, that the Sierra Nevada Conservancy funded this. Part of the Trinity County is now part of Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and maybe, I think, Keith, that's in your district for the most part. There could be some consideration, and I'm not sure where the trail that is proposed to go around Trinity Lake, where that's at, but this could be a potential funding mechanism to help fuel that study and and kind of keep pushing that along if that's plateaued at all. And I would like to give praise to our local RCD for developing such an amazing mountain bike trail system in River Valley. And I know there's plans on expanding that. There's talks of having trails that connect into other communities outside of the Weaverville area. So I think Trinity County has a lot of opportunity with our mountain bike trails. It is a growing economy. The national outdoor recreation industry is a booming industry. It is only going up and up and up. And that's kind of the economic basis for why types of projects like these, or like what Downeyville has done, have so much long-term value. And one of the neat things they're doing with kind of the trails is also looking at using these mountain bike trails as permanent fire breaks and permanent accesses for firefighters to get into areas that are normally hard to get to. That kind of wraps it up on the trails. And the last thing is that I did share the concern with our CRC members and staff about some of the challenges of teacher recruitment, and not just in Trinity County, but a lot of the rural areas, specifically for pre-K education. There's some issues, not issues, but the certifications are different for pre-K, and then for, I think, I don't want to speak, I think it's from 5th and above is different than from pre-K to 5th or pre-K to 3rd. And so there's we're in a shortage of pre-K teachers, and the teachers that are in the age bracket above that are not eligible to just teach those other age brackets. They have to get another certification, or I don't know if it's a degree, but they don't have the right credentials. So there was a hope that maybe the legislation could look at the ability of having some type of allowance or some type of expedited certificate or certification that could really help expand the availability of our older age teaching or teachers to fulfill this pre-K need. So that was shared, and I'll report back if anything continues to develop with that. Happy to answer any questions, and again, Supervisor Cox might have some corrections or refinements on some of my RCRC things. Thank you.
Jeremy, during the charging station discussion, was there any discussion about the zones that there's no electrical grid to? So as you and Dan and I know that 20% of the county's people don't have electrical hookups. So is that even on their radar, that is a thing that exists?
I don't recall it being specifically discussed in that detail, but I know that there's a lot of concerns from all the rural supervisors about the infrastructure aspect of charging stations. I don't anticipate that Head and Shot is going to have to require a charging station for its community. I think they'll likely become based on either population or traffic flow, things like that. So I'd imagine along the 299 corridor and in Weaverville, that's probably going to be a priority area. But it's still in development, so I'll ask that specific question and get back to the board with that.
And also, while you're doing that, is my understanding that the state is requiring electrical hookups on all houses now that are being built for charging stations. So that would be another question to ask. If you're off the grid, do you have to have a charging station you have no power for? The retail, putting all municipalities and counties will have to have retail cannabis outlets. Is that what I heard?
Specific medical is the key word in this. This is not just recreation. This is only for medical. So if they want to do both, they can. I know that the Department of Cannabis Control is looking at developing grants to help incentivize and encourage jurisdictions, but the basis is that 61% of jurisdictions, cities, and counties in the state of California do not have access to medical cannabis at this time. And being that a lot of initiative of cannabis in the early days was all specifically for medical, that it's not going to be able to roll out as intended unless there's full participation, because if there's a whole rural area where people depend on medical cannabis, but they have to drive for 2 hours, or there's no delivery person to drive medicine to them for 2 hours, then that person is put in a predicament where they're likely to fall back to maybe a black market provider, or they don't have any provider, or like I said, they have to drive 2 hours one way, so a 4-hour round trip for someone to get something that is helping them with their medical issues, and that's the basis of that bill.
So the state's going to actually take over land use in counties, is that, or are they just giving incentive for counties to do it or don't or die? Or did they get that technical?
It didn't get that technical as far as overriding the land use side of it, because I think it's still going to require CEQA, and so it's still going to have to go through typical land use stuff. But like I said, the emphasis is on the medical side, so they're not requiring, you know, a recreational dispensary to pop up or anything like that. But it's explicitly for the medical side of it. As far as how they'll implement or force or cite any counties that don't participate by a certain period of time, I haven't heard anything about that, but I can inquire.
And I'm guessing, and being a smart aleck here, that I'm sure they're also including having pharmacies so people can get their heart medicines in all jurisdictions. That was rhetorical. Thank you, Jeremy, for all your hard work.
All right, thanks.
Supervisor Dogan. I already went to you. Okay. I was at the RCRC convention with Jeremy and Jill. Jeremy did a great job saying a lot of the stuff that we saw there. I think Jill is going to speak about one of the programs that Jeremy did not speak about Cal Poly and the grant that they got for future education there. I just want to thank Jill. I think it was her first meeting with RCRC. She did a great job there with Jeremy. And I know she plans on being the lead next year. I think she will do a great job. And I'll leave it at that. Thanks to Jeremy and Jill for being there. It was a great meeting, and I think we all learned a lot. So I will leave it to Jill.
All right, well, first off, I will report that I had no out-of-county travel, and most of what I have to report will be done under the Cannabis Ad Hoc report out. So, Supervisor Cox.
So I'll start with, I'm just going to go over. So PSA 2, there's been talking for months now about the development of a local food program for our seniors, and really happy to announce that it is up and running. We had our first meal delivery on Tuesday the 13th. 9 seniors were served 1 hot meal and 1 frozen meal. On the 15th, 15 seniors were served 1 hot meal and 2 frozen meals. As of yesterday afternoon, there were 18 recipients on the list for a meal delivery today. And yesterday also at the PSA 2 executive meeting, the board voted unanimously to approve the purchase of a 4-wheel drive vehicle that will be stationed here in Weaverville. It'll be parked at the Nazarene Church, and the purpose is that if we didn't have that vehicle, we would have to cap the service at 20 program participants, but with this, they have already identified around 25, and the list continues to grow, of people who would like to be served. And so thanks to Dignity Health Connected Living and Dignity Health Connected Living's retired senior volunteer program, the Church of the Nazarene, and many volunteers who are passionate about this, this program is going forward and now underway serving our citizens. So it's very exciting. So RCRC, what a great entity. Thanks to Supervisor Brown for his diligence and just so kindly connecting me to people on the staff there. I appreciate the structure that that entity is with this executive team that is on staff. And then there's a board of, supervisors from 38 participating counties. And those staff members are knowledgeable and engaged and personable. So I was most delighted to meet Bob Burris. He is the Deputy Chief Economic Development Officer. I spent 2 hours with him just discussing economic development ideas for Trinity County and ways by which we can engage together to achieve these goals. So he's excited to come to Weaverville for a visit, engage in conversation with the strategizing team that I have put together. And so discussion on the trail systems that Supervisor Brown described. This is very exciting, how we can engage in this process as well. So, and then combining that with the efforts that are already underway here with our Trinity Trail Alliance and how they're already connected with Shasta County's Trail Alliance program. And I just see a huge opportunity for development in this area. Let's see, let's continue on. As far as the broadband issue is concerned, I connected Trinity County with Marina McClatchy. She is one of 2 state broadband leads for California from the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. So this entity is largely responsible for a mapping system. And what that means right now is that they're going to map what is so that they can then determine what will be. So when you look at this whole infrastructure, there's 3 levels, on which broadband can exist for counties. And so the first one, and the golden child of all of it, is of course if you've got line in conduit underground. Secondly would be line of sight, like we have primarily here with Velocity serving us with infrastructure on towers, and that's been, this is just a complicated topic. That's been a huge win for us of recent because there were conditional use permits that Velocity has had sitting on the shelf waiting for the Forest Service to sign off for 14 years now, one of which is already signed and the other one, the last 2 remaining, has been signed and the last one is just almost ready to be signed. And so we're now able to reach areas, and when we identified, okay, where is our need still existing, really we kind of identified the Hyam Palm area as being, okay, how are we going to figure this one out? So then circling back to, it's called LADA, Local Area Technology Assistance, and that's the grant funding that's available to help counties map this out and identify what do you want your plan to ultimately look like. And it really is on counties to stay on top of this. There's money available and there's help available, but they're not going to come and do it for you. So when we look at the mapping, we're working closely with Connie Stewart from Poly Humboldt, and she is helping us to realize, there's areas that you want people to get involved in, there's areas where you kind of don't want them coming in and telling you how to do it. And so we're very comfortable with the mapping that has been created so far. So now being able to connect that with Marina is just a huge piece of connectivity, just in partners and relationships and moving this forward. So I think that I'm trying to figure out how to help people wrap their minds all around this in a short board report to know that, pardon me, we have great connections and the conversations are underway, the meetings are taking place. We have, our CAO is involved with Connie Stewart, and then now Marina's in the conversation. Barbara Hayes at RCRC is, right here with us to help guide this whole process. And so good things are coming. It's going to take time, But, you know, as far as Trinity County is concerned, and we look at underground conduit, their big push is, you know, dig once. So any place that there is construction going on our roads, in any place, you know, connect together, because running the line isn't the expense, burying the conduit is. So if you've got conduit there even ready to receive, you know, what can be blown through those is not the biggest problem. So we look at, you know, 299 and 3 as being those places where we can put conduit in the ground, and then really the areas based on the topography of our county, it's probably going to be kind of more of a line of sight situation. So good things happening there. Want to report out on the Minersville boat ramp. So on September 7th, I was in a discussion session with some local folks who are really passionate about making sure that we take advantage of the disadvantage of our drought and our water levels being low, because that Minersville ramp, as you all know, is our one path to the bottom of the lake. If we could get that paved well now, but it has been connected to this whole huge plan that the Forest Service wants to see, which includes 25 pull-through parking spots and just a whole infrastructure of parking and everything that goes with the advancement of the service that we have at that ramp. So our ask of Forest Supervisor on September 15th, I was of course at RCRC when the group met with the Forest Supervisor, but I did send her an email adding the weight of my ask that we find a way to move this forward. And the ask really was, can we figure out how to like separate the two projects? We may need some time to figure out what everything needs to look like as far as parking and all of that is concerned, but we can't lose the opportunity of the level of the lake right now. And I will just share with you the email that I received back from Supervisor Berkey. She said we had a great meeting today with this group. So glad they came for the visit. I feel good about the forest path forward on the project, and I have asked Sarah Akridge, our acting forest engineer Kelly, to please ensure it gets prioritized and moved through our systems. We are absolutely on board with helping folks have good access to the lake and encouraging them to spend more time recreating in Trinity County. So I'm taking that as a great big yes, and we will be excited about seeing the reality move forward. Superior California Economic Development. This ties back into a couple of things that Supervisor Brown reported out about with regard to the SEDS, and that is under Superior California Economic Development's purview to keep that document up to date and allow that to be our path forward for economic development. So what I am asking, and I would ask the board if we could please give direction to our CAO. We are at that point now where we have received our bill from our involvement in the JPA with SCED. What I would like to see is that before we pay that bill, I would like the new executive director to make a presentation to our board and give us an update as to what the updated JPA looks like for Trinity County and his vision for our county's participation in that for the 22-23 fiscal year. So I would imagine that is something that we have to agendize for discussion and direction at the next meeting, and we don't have to, or I do. Can we give that direction to staff without agendizing it?
You can give direction at any time, at any point. At any point, the board may give direction, absolutely. So
Okay.
this would be a good time to do it.
So is that something that I would make a motion, or how does that work?
So when we do direction, we do ask for consensus. So you would just say, I'd like to give direction on this, and then the clerk will make sure we have consensus on it. So just basically poll the board informally.
Okay, that is the direction I would request.
Looks like we're, I don't see anybody jumping up and down.
Okay, thank you. Letty, are you good?
Yep.
Okay. I think I covered everything, unless there are any questions. I feel like I covered what I took notes on. And that would be
I have one thing.
Yes.
Speaking to Jeremy about the electronic vehicle charging stations, we are a little bit ahead of the game. Myself, Panos, Letty have been talking about having charging stations in strategic places here in Trinity County, and they will charge not just one type of car, but the multiple outlets will be on them. So in that respect, we are ahead of the game and starting to plan where they're going to be and getting it up to state, and that is through RCRC and a grant through them. So we're looking pretty good on that end.
And I did miss one point, if I could circle back as well. Poly Humboldt, formerly Humboldt State University, and that is our connection with Connie Stewart, who works for them. She has offered to do a presentation to the board on the turnover, if you will, or of that university into the Cal Poly Tech that it is now. And I think that that would be a healthy thing for us to engage in with her, because then there's going to be conversations about her involvement with broadband there too. So if we could agendize a presentation, I think that would be wise.
Bill, could I add on to that, Connie adding some input on the $458 million grant they got and the new programs, 29 new programs that will be starting in 2023, 2026, and I think finishing in 2029, which will add 29 new programs to what is now Cal Poly. They'll have various new things, which is a kind of a gateway for our kids to kind of stay home without staying at home. So I think her presentation was great there. I would also like to reach out to Greg Williams, who gave the presentation on the pass up there in Downeyville, which was also a great presentation that really hits home with us, the same type of community we are. It's very sustainable. They made it through the worst fire, drought, everything that you can imagine, and they are thriving there. They had a few setbacks, but it's an amazing thing, and it was an amazing presentation that he put on. I would also like to have the board okay having Greg Williams come here and give us a presentation on that.
It sounds like we have direction to staff on 2 items. Connie, I don't remember their names, Connie and Mr.
Greg
Williams.
I can put it on the agenda myself.
Okay, you can just put it on the
Having
agenda.
those agendized, I think that the supervisors could probably just throw that on.
Absolutely, as long as you don't need assistance from staff or
Yeah,
want them
that for presentations, they can reach out to those people and pick that off staff. All right, Supervisor.
I have questions.
Okay.
If they're done. So does Connie have a timetable on when Digital 299 is coming through Trinity?
No, this is all, that's one thing I think that was kind of healthy and relieving, to sit in this conference and hear discussion after discussion on all this. What you realize is they're figuring this out as they go. There isn't anything that's got an end date deadline. We are not missing the boat on anything. They're literally writing this as they speak. And most of the discussions were really kind of streams of consciousness as they discussed with each other, what is unfolding and what they see coming down the pike. So the connections that we have, I think particularly with Marina, with Barbara at RCRC, and with Connie, we are sitting in a very safe space right now. We are, I think, right where we need to be in our engagement in those discussions.
So is Digital 299 now dead?
I can't answer the question.
Okay.
What was the question? Is it dead?
Well, it was in progress going, they had dates to finish the environmental work, there was supposedly construction going on. And what I just heard is that that's not.
Well, I don't think you're necessarily hearing that. I think that you need to hear. And so let me just get Connie to give us the facts on that so we don't mess it up.
All right, that would be wonderful.
Okay.
And what else did Oh, I appreciate your enthusiasm and for the boat ramp. I won't believe it when I see it.
I know. I won't believe it when we see
Because
it.
we had that as a done deal 6 years ago.
Okay. Fair.
But we have a much better forest supervisor at this point. So I have been in contact with Sarah several times over that, but it has gotten into classic Forest Service staff.
It really has, and I feel like it's one of those things where when you hear Sarah's, narrative of what has happened, and then what predates her, I think she was in that place where she needed Rachel to start speaking into this and just elevating it above what she could do with it. So I'm gonna live in hopeful land.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, Supervisor Gross.
Yeah. So, had the, of course, had a meeting with Tara, which she basically went over everything today, so I can give you an update. We had the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. They had their meeting up in Lakehead on the Shasta side. And so that went really well. It was very interesting. Whoever's going to take that in the future, I think that's something that we really need to participate in aggressively. I'm sure that our RCD will be in that. But so for those that don't know, it's basically every watershed north of Lewiston Dam. And right now they're in the figuring out what can be done, the studying aspect of that zone. There's a lot of good work going on the Shasta side on this. There's a lot of potential for monies, for land clearing, trails, just all sorts of things. That area has been overlooked for years because it was above the dam and no monies went into it because salmon couldn't get there. So I think that's something that the county really needs to focus on, and there's an amazing potential there. It's a really interesting group, and the North State will be split out. At this point, we don't have any true representation, but they are going to make, or they're trying to make a new district that will cover us, Siskiyou County, Modoc. And so then we will have rotating board of supervisors being on that board. Besides that, it's just all cannabis 24/7.
I have a question before you break into the cannabis, if I could. When you have your next meeting, are they quarterly meetings?
Yes, they are.
When you have the next meeting, would you ping them a bit as to the whole trail system? And we can talk about what we heard at RCRC with Greg Williams, but they're a key player in that.
Sure. Just so everybody knows, there's been several land trades up there. Most of that forest there's a lot of private because it got swapped out during the wilderness period. So there's Roseburg lumber's in there, SPI's in there, but it's not very good timberland. It's Site 3, Site 4, might even be some Site 5 in there. And it's been logged pretty heavily, and so a lot of that is pure timberland is probably not going to be its greatest and best use. So this is something that these groups, and Nick Boulette is all over this and sees a lot of huge potential, but I think the county needs to stay focused also.
All right, you want to start off the cannabis report out?
Yeah, let me get to the update that came yesterday. So just in the general update, we have 354 checklists that have been submitted. There was 5 more last week. Of that, 310 got initial letters sent back to them. We have 336 in technical review, which means they've passed, passed the basics to get in technical review. And we have had 68 make it out of technical review to be sitting on the county's desk. so that have passed or been deemed CEQA compliant by our group. It basically every week there seems to be about 5 to 7 rejections and 1 or 2 passes. And so the CRISP report still seems to be a holdup, and that's the initial archaeological study hasn't been submitted. And there is a lot of, and there's a little contention on this, a lot of nesting raptors that our consultants look on a Google map and see some trees and say, oh, there's potential, you need more studies. And several of the consultants say that we've already studied that and we don't see a reason for it. So there's a little bit of contention in that process. But it was sort of referred to today that so we have, and our numbers got a little skewed. We were under the understanding there was 31 signed, but we'll just stick with that right now. So that leaves that there's 37 unsigned that have to go through county issues. And so the ad hoc has worked very hard. Drew and Ed are now, in Sean's absence, taking the reins here. And so we've come up with a lot of strategies of how to get those things moving faster through that. And hopefully we're breaking down those chains. Both gentlemen are highly committed to get those out and going. And the problem within the CEQA process, there's really nothing that we can do to speed that process up. We're starting to look at ways to streamline now that we have a complete staff, that we may not have outside consultants helping us as much and interfering in the process. So we are looking at ways to streamline this out. Go ahead, Dan.
I think that you covered the majority of it. I looked through my notes and then don't see anything else. Mostly what we've had a lot at our ad hocs. We've had a lot more specific questions, more than programmatic, program-wide questions. So, if anybody has any.
So, yeah, I'll go ahead. And we did the local tribe. Has had some heartburn about the notification to the tribe. In this, we feel that we have been compliant with state laws, but we also are looking at sometimes you need to go past what state laws say. And so we are in that process of negotiating with them to make sure that they get the notifications that they're interested in and be good neighbors to them. There's still, as you heard today, there's still massive frustration out there. We have seen people leaving the industry. We have seen people leaving the county. Of the 350, I don't know how many would, if they were given a license today, would still be here. So there's a lot of anxiety, and I think it's obvious you feel that in this room, and are working, pedaling as fast as we can to get this going. And I will say that Ed is taking a strong role in this, and he's probably spending more time than he should be being the director of all these things, but this is a very high priority for that division. So, any questions? Okay, thanks. Oh, and just to announce that we're not having an ad hoc this week, right?
No, we are not.
Okay, so for the public, we're not. not have it.
I may have anyway. All right, so with that will end reports and announcements. And we'll move into the consent calendar. These items include routine, non-controversial matters and will be acted upon by the board by one roll call motion. If a member of the public has any questions or comments on an item on the consent calendar, they may provide them now. A member of the board or staff may request an item be pulled and considered separately. Does anyone have any items they wish to pull? And do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
I have no raised hands and no chats.
Right, but we will close public comment on the consent calendar and bring it back to the board.
I'll move to approve as presented.
I will second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Cox? Aye. Supervisor Gross?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. County matters. Auditor control. These items include non-routine or controversial matters and are listed alphabetically by department. A member of the board or staff may request that an item be heard out of order. Any requests to change the agenda? All right. Auditor controller. Item 4.1. Discuss and/or give direction to staff regarding the options to correct the inadvertent omission of the Mountain Valley bond rate from the secure tax bills for fiscal year 21-22. Unknown fiscal impact.
Good morning. My name is Christine Gaffney. I'm the Assistant Auditor Controller at the Auditor's Office. So I'll just be reading over the agenda so that everybody at home can also hear. So the Mountain Valley Bond Measure J was passed by the voters of the Mountain Valley School District on November 7, 2017. There was a delay in the implementation of the bond due to a challenge of the election. However, in October 2018, a judge ruled in favor of the bond measure. The Auditor's Office inadvertently did not calculate and include the bond rate, which was to be applied in fiscal year 21-22 secure tax bills. This bond is only applicable to those parcels that reside within the boundaries of the Mountain Valley Unified School District. The revenue collected from this bond was to be used by the schools to offset their principal interest payment and establish a small reserve within their fund. The schools made the required payment for their fund, which resulted in their cash going into the deficit. A meeting was held between the Auditor's Office, tax collector, and the school district to discuss and review the options and calculations. Option A, adding the 21-22 tax rate to the 22-23 tax bills, or option B, to spread the 21-22 tax rate over a period of 3 years, 22-23, 23-24, and 24-25. The school district is concerned with the financial impact this will have on the taxpayer and selected option B, to spread the 21-22 tax rate over a period of 3 years, the 22-23, the 23-24, and 24-25 tax year, beginning in the 25-26 tax year, and all future years will only have the applicable tax rate for that year. Attached, I provided you with the calculations for option A and option B for your review. Option A will bring the school district into a positive cash balance within the 22-23 tax year. However, the taxpayer will be paying double the tax payment. Option B is estimated to bring the schools into a positive cash balance by the end of fiscal year 24-25, maybe earlier. However, there is a few things to take into account other than the annual CPI increase up to 2% of the citizen's assessed value, which has been included in the calculation provided. If a citizen within the boundaries improves their property value, such as a new construction during fiscal year 24-25, the amount they are paying towards the bond would be higher. And if there is a change in ownership, then the new owner would be paying the increased bond rate. It's anticipated that there would only be a handful of citizens this would apply to, if any. Based on this unfortunate situation, the Mountain Valley Bond Fund 326 has a deficit cash balance of $159,110, of which $1,899 is derived from negative interest. The school district is requesting the county reimburse them for the negative interest, which will be brought before you at a later board meeting after the budget for fiscal year 22-23 has been adopted. So alternatives to this is to deny both option A and B and advise the staff. But it is staff's recommendation to approve the school district's choice for option B.
Any technical questions before I open this public comment? Okay, go ahead.
So was issuing a supplemental tax bill discussed?
It was discussed, but in order to do something like this, because I called it's our tax database system, they're called Megabyte. So I called them and they said in order to try to do like a separate billing or anything like that, it is something that they'd have to update our database because it is so specific to do a mass rule change of what is called basically escapes. And that's going to cost the county anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 for them to do it. There are 3,284 parcels that we're looking at.
How many? Say that again.
3,284 parcels. The other thing that would cost the county if we did something like that is that, and Terry, please let me know if I'm incorrect on this, but because these would be considered escapes, the tax collector would have to send out a letter to everyone. So in postage, that's roughly $1,800 just for the letter of escapes. For the bills, she would also have to pay for the stock, which is $1,500 roughly, that's my estimate, that'd be about right. And then to mail the bills out, we're talking about another $1,800.
I think that's it for my technical questions.
Any other technical questions?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple here. So it was the auditor's office that forgot to send out or calculate the bond rate accurately? Is that
Yes,
correct?
we inadvertently didn't put it on the tax bill.
And we're now trying to make this a burden of the people of the Mountain Valley Unified School District?
The voters approved this back in 2017, but then it was challenged, the election was challenged. And in 2018, a judge ruled that the election was valid, it was fine. I'm not sure why it took so long between 2018 and 2021 by the time they got the debt schedule ready and everything like that going. I mean, I'm sure it takes time, like anything else. So it was supposed to go on the 21-22 tax rates. And there was a misunderstanding with some of the communications of when this was supposed to be on there and by our office. And so it didn't go on the 21-22 secure tax bills for last year. So the options are, as stated, option A, which is put the 21-22 tax rate onto this year's bill and recoup that revenue, or spread it out over a period of 3 years. And in the meeting that we had with schools, they opted for option B, to spread the tax rate over a period of 3 years.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, I guess with that, we'll open public comment on item 4.1. Have any public comment?
I have no raised hands and no chats.
All right, we'll close public comment, bring it back to the board.
I would like to make a motion to pass option B in this situation as stated.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
In option B, so this is kind of interesting to me. We're saying that we'll pay the interest, but that vote comes back to a later date, so where we can say no at that point.
The covering the negative interest involves the budget, and because we haven't had budget hearings or anything like that yet, we had to push it off, and that's, correct me if I'm wrong, Susie, but that's why we had to push that part off, correct? Because it's affecting budget, which we haven't really done.
We can't do a budget adjustment for the fiscal year 22-23 budget because we haven't formally adopted it yet.
Yeah.
Is that part of it. The item, and I don't know if at this point in time, we probably can't because it's not written in there, but what we do a lot of times would be to write the item to authorize budget adjustments be signed by the CAO and the auditor controller based on this approval. So if you were to approve option B, essentially that would be approving the negative interest. You would then give the authorization for the CAO and the auditor to sign the necessary budget adjustments for that to happen for fiscal years 21-22 and 22-23, and then 23-24 and 24-25 would be built into the budget that would be presented to you. But there, I missed that in review. There was a miscommunication between Christine and I on that, and that didn't get written into this agenda item.
So is that not possible for that to be included in the motion today, Council?
Yes, I think that can be included in the motion.
How would we phrase that in a motion?
My request would be that you would phrase it as whichever option you're choosing to approve, and that you authorize the CAO and the auditor controller to sign any necessary budget adjustments to cover the negative interest for fiscal years 21-22 and 22-23.
And I'm comfortable with that amendment. I do believe because that is requiring a potential budget adjustment, we would need a 4/5 vote.
So Supervisor Gogan, are you going to amend, or would you?
I'd like to amend that to have the CAO and the auditor.
As I stated?
Yeah.
Second.
All right, so we have an amended motion and second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I do. I want to thank the school board, and I've worked with members of the school board. It's nice to see you guys here. Very generous of you to kind of let us off the hook here with minimal damage. I appreciate that. Sorry that this happened. But that.
Anything else? No, I'd just like to thank Cindy also and Fabio for discussing this with us, and we got it all worked out and got to get together and get it done. Thank you very much.
All right.
I think if anything, I would agree with those notes of gratitude to the school board. And also just point out that this is a really odd situation. To have a bond is unusual, and then to have your bond challenge is extremely unusual. And so we have to have discussions about what kind of triggers need to be in place to where if we had a situation like this in the future, we wouldn't miss it. But I just want to also offer grace to those who are working really hard and recognize that as unusual as this is, these things can happen. And I just appreciate the working relationship that we have on both sides to try to do everything that's best for all involved. And so thank you.
Okay, I think we're
Ready?
Yep.
Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Gogan?
Aye.
Supervisor Brown?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Aye.
Chairman Frazier?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Item 4.3.
Mr. Chair, can we take a quick
Okay, well,
10-minute break before we go into anything cannabis?
Yeah, we'll take a
10-minute recess and resume, 9 minutes, we'll resume at 11 a.m.
Nope, 9 o'clock.
Nice to see you. How are you? Good.
You just can't tell time. You can't see the sun from in here, so you can't.
Maybe I just didn't write it all the way.
I think I wrote it wrong.
Okay, yeah. I just emailed it to her. I was here last week. And I told her, I said, I told Heidi when I met her, you're gonna love me. She goes, no, I think not.
No, I
So I just
actually
wanted to
was
say
here
that.
There was substantially more construction. I couldn't believe it. Because this site had and they gave me a whole load of
I came over here, but
editor.
it was
Extending our gratitude. I mean, it was just really amazing.
Well, it's gives good reason why we should be there today.
We're not going to how bizarre that was to have that happen. Not just you, but here entirely. Yeah,
I saw your email come through, I didn't get a chance to read it. They're related, I don't know that we're reviewing it.
Oh, no, I don't know. And I didn't prompt it just
Yes,
because
they
it was.
are.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, like I said, I didn't have any checks since I headed over here. She could have already let me know that, but. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to have that.
But anyway, otherwise, we're doing pretty good. A lot of people got different water cubes from the press week.
Okay.
So anybody that was needed, if you try, you're on next week. I got them
All day Thursday.
They had cubes and so it's giving them sure you're not.
When's your
The water and then on Thursday, really last. We can't.
I don't think you brought them in.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that we're making sure you're having their truck working on.
And then after that, we were gonna do a lot of polling.
Because, well, we got, I got to see, set them up for resiliency, and now they become.
She hasn't tried to run yet. And that's probably why I think these,
Don't run, they like one or two, can't afford the opportunity, so it just says to me that because we did it out.
Yeah. We'll see you. I met with, I went over and met with Jeffrey. He was bringing up the fact that not only outside of that whole situation, it's just what this county proposes. And so I said, well, you know, let me, because I'm still trying to figure out all the stuff that's happened in the past. So I sat down with him. Well, he's going to talk about
I just completely dropped the ball.
So we were in the
Thursday and signed it, I just forgot.
And I reached out to him, he called me, and we talked about this actually get people hired. That's the one that Christie just mentioned about Shasta County. And so he said that first, you know, at least put out stuff to see if people will drive well. And so far, we had one on there that I got one more. And I've talked to a few people, but a lot of people just, they're not important. So it doesn't look good for trying to something this extensive, you know. Well, and that's just it. So one of the ladies that I talked to said that very same thing. She said, we live in Trinity County, you know, and so I talked to her about our own form and our own database. And if it would be more comfortable, just letting the county. But even like when Christy and I were all at their place and people kind of asked us about that. You guys come on and look at your situation.
Well, you see,
We're not
nothing.
gonna do anything for you.
So you get to see a site.
Why?
And she assured them, no, that's not what we're here for. We're here just to get you back.
I get that.
And trying to convince the public. Yeah, I'm trying to convince people of
I don't
that.
think realize
So,
my bridge.
right now,
He reworded it. That's lifetime work.
let's talk about
I like it.
I have one question. They've already
I learned that was a legal one.
And
We're supposed to get this thing.
and I said something like that.
Higher, and they don't have application. Okay, that's what we should realize is that, you know, I'm already and that was before. So I think that we love page 20, $32,000 for the city of Shasta Lake. There's four of us sitting here, don't even get this. Okay, and now the space makes these laws where you've got to have it. And we have the written
Step over a dollar to pick up the gun here. We're really looking at this.
It probably just depends on the check with you. You want to think about it. Since it's
And we just assumed it was, but there's also information around and one other one. There might be just areas or times also my concern.
Well,
And that's only because I asked.
So I reached out to one of the clients out of the sheriff. She said, here's a list, here's the.
Right, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I already.
There's only one company.
Good brand.
So go to Straw House, is it quicker for you?
Only because I really trust these guys. Okay, and so I was going to do everything else. But a lot of the CBD is not regulated. I thought babies. So I would go and I would buy medicine after the dragons. Or I think I can see God. Not just little. Okay, it's just pure yeah, do that, and then you're gonna wanna. It is weird. It's like, but I'll just. Okay, so, right, so I will send that.
That's just a curiosity, and I would be
interested.
Supervisor, go again. Yes, sir.
Like college.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. You wouldn't have to.
No, I'll be here.
So, since you're both going to be that,
No.
Chairman Frazier.
For what?
You're missing someone else you're not calling out? Or am I just special privilege?
You're special.
You were in the room, we could call you out.
Yeah.
The other,
He's not addressed there?
our board clerk would have gone out to get our others.
Oh, I see.
She was outside the building.
We can,
I think
we
that's
can
all right.
email.
It's in the restroom.
I have some pictures.
Okay. Yep.
All right, well,
Sir, good to see you, but would you possibly
Yeah.
Right here.
Perfect.
All right, well, I guess we can wait for one moment for Supervisor Cox.
Supervisor, or Chairman Frazier, I do have an issue I'd like to bring up on the meeting resumes.
Okay. Well, I see Supervisor Cox, so we'll be getting going here in a second.
No? You're worse than me.
You needed a challenge.
All right, it's 11 o'clock, so we'll call the September 20th Trinity County Board of Supervisors meeting back to order. County matters, item 4.3, take the following actions regarding the establishment of a cannabis processing regulations.
I'm sorry, we're doing this.
We pulled item 4.2, and so I guess I could remind people that we did pull item 4.2 because it wasn't ready for prime time. It wasn't ready. We had discrepancies that Cannabis and County Clerk are going to work out. Yeah.
Did Jeremy not want to say something?
It's not in relationship to this item, it's in relation to an item in motion made at the last board meeting, so I don't know if now is the appropriate time or it can happen after this item.
I don't know.
Could you do it now just to have a little bit, because there are people that want to be able to listen to it otherwise.
Okay, well, go ahead, Jeremy, because I don't know how to do this either, and County Council's not glaring at me, so I think we're okay.
Okay, and I am watching the video feed, so I apologize for not being in person on this. But this is regarding the item from the last meeting regarding the flow change variables for the TRP. Since the last meeting, I met with the HOOPA chair, and he expressed, as well as their fisheries representative Mike Orpit, and they expressed some concerns they had with the item as it's described, and with more specifically the timing of implementation. And I was open-minded to listening to their concerns, as I really value their perspective, obviously. And I asked that I could have time to have a more in-depth conversation between the Hookah tribe and the Yurok tribe, because the Yurok tribe has been supportive of this implementation and study, however the Hookah isn't. And so I really wanted an opportunity to put that out there, to give everyone a fair chance to have their voice heard. I know this item, this proposal from TRP had been proposed at least a year ago, and by many would have liked it to have seen implemented as of last year. So I'm not in the view that this is a last minute proposal that is trying to be pushed through or anything, and that was discussed slightly at the last board meeting. But I do like making sure that everyone's voices have been heard and that all of the information has had time to surface. And I'll say again, the main takeaway for me from that meeting was that I would love to hear the two tribes essentially have a debate about it and understand why they have such different viewpoints on this and be so closely, so close in geography. So I was asked to reconsider, my vote on the item. That was as of yesterday, and I guess having slept on it and considered my reasoning and the broader process outside of my perspective on it, I'm not comfortable making that motion to reconsider myself at this point today, but I did want to bring this discussion and concept forward if there's another board member that would be interested in this process and essentially delay and or reconsideration of the vote. So that's where I stand on the issue, and I'll leave it at that. I don't know if County Council has to comment on the process or understands, and that's it.
Council.
I'm happy to do so. I just wanted to make sure everyone on the board understood the motion to reconsider process. When an item is voted on, anyone who votes in the majority has the ability to ask for reconsideration. That should be done as soon as possible to the vote, and when they do the motion, it's required to be second, and in order for it to be placed back on the agenda for reconsideration, it would require a 4/5 vote.
And doesn't our governance manual with Rosenberg's rules say that it has to be done at the meeting? I know Robert says as soon thereafter.
So the recommendation, yes, and what we have put in our governance manual is that it has to be done at the same meeting. There is a provision in our governance manual as well that does allow to vary from it, so it would allow it to go on a different meeting. From my perspective, as close thereto is essential, but sometimes upon reconsideration overnight, people change their minds. So we do have that provision in our governance manual that allows us to have a little bit of flexibility in terms of that.
So I would say that, so it was Supervisor Brown and yourself that met with, who met with the Hoopa tribe?
It was myself, Margaret, Mike Borcott.
Well, I mean, it was just Supervisor Brown.
It was
You
Jeremy
two.
yesterday.
So, if anything, I mean, Supervisor Brown is now coming from a new perspective based on more information. So not having that more information, it's hard to know where to land. I would say, for myself, more information is always better if someone hasn't been fully heard. It's important to hear everything. So, Supervisor Brown, did you make a motion?
No, he did not.
Okay.
I did not make a motion, so I don't know if a motion needs to be made to continue any type of discussion. I think I kind of laid out my reasoning for being open to this being a motion.
Am I allowed to comment?
Well, we need a motion, I think, before we get into discussion, so is anybody going to make that motion, or is this going to die for lack of motion?
Well, I would say, Supervisor Brown, since you're the one that has the information that the rest of us don't have, I'm kind of leaning on you for how strongly you feel about it if you're going to make a motion.
Okay, well, for the sake of discussion, I'll move to reconsider the restoration flows agenda item from last meeting.
I'll second for discussion.
So I'm kind of shocked we didn't get to hear this in report outs, that you had meetings and didn't report to the board.
Well, I believe the letter from Hoopa Tribe was sent to all members of the board at some time last week through the clerk of the board. It was a letter mailed to the county office. So I believe we all did receive their information on it. As far as you're correct, I should have shared it during report out. It wasn't out of county, so there's no formal requirement, but at that time it would have been more appropriate. I was under an understanding that it didn't necessarily have to happen at this exact meeting, and that was my misunderstanding. And I would like to respond to Supervisor Cox saying there's no information that I have that no one else has. It's all been very public. This looks like it's over a year-long process. What I wanted to see and hear was a dialogue between the two tribal representing members and hear their explanations of how they have a difference of opinion on such a long-term developed process. And I explicitly told Hoopa Tribe, I really wish you guys could figure this out on your own. The fact that it's come to this level is not ideal to see, as far as a reflection of the efficiency of the TMC and their ability to sort things out as their council is designed to do. So there's a level of, I don't know if disappointment is the right word, but it's such a contentious issue, I guess, that this is where we are on it. Again, my open-mindedness was due to trying to be as respectful of a neighbor as possible to the Hoopa Valley tribe and address their concerns. I was clear in stating that the overwhelming scientific support or scientific views of this suggestion are supportive, and that weighs heavily into my view in it, as does Tom Stokely's support of this. And he's always been traditionally supportive of all things the Hoopa tribe has wanted to implement in their concerns. And so it was ironic to me that Stokely was supportive of this flow variation change and that the tribe was not. I was told, sometimes the majority doesn't mean that it's right. Whether or not I agree with that, I did want to just give the opportunity out there, mostly as a form of respect, but just to allow the board to have this discussion, to share my opinion on it. I just wanted to respond to you feeling like there was some other information. There's no other information that I'm aware of.
So when you had your meeting, it was just meeting about process, not about information, is that what you're saying?
It was just going over the information that had been shared in the letter that was shared with everybody in more detail, as this dates back to issues. According to the Hoopa tribe, this all ties into older issues and this other bigger, broader timeline of the Trinity River rights and things of that nature. And so the vast complexity of the interagencies, the timeline, the history, all the different permittees and water users, it ties into the 50,000 acre feet. There's a whole range of things that, according to the Hoopa tribe, this has triggered instability and other things, so to speak. So I just wanted to bring it up, and that's.
So I guess I would have a question for how the TMC works generally. Supervisor Groves, you could help me. What we are discussing here is how the Trinity County Board of Supervisors is going to view this topic. And we are one seat at the table.
Yes.
And the Hoopa Valley tribe is their own seat at the table.
Yes. In UROC, there's 8 seats, UROC, Hoopa, Trinity, NOAA, Forest Service, the state, Fish and Wildlife, and the BOR.
And those who spoke to us 2 weeks ago when we made the decision that we did, were they their own seat at the table, or are they kind of a part of Trinity County's voice at that table?
No, they are the TRRP, the restoration project, has people from different entities. So they are the science, you have different employees. There was one from Fish and Game, there was one from the Bureau, maybe 2 from the Bureau. I forget who was there. I think one from the Karuk tribe was there. But they're all employees, but they are not the voting members of that entity.
So then essentially what we have here is one voice at the table coming to want to speak into, on the side, another voice at the table.
Yes.
Okay, I withdraw my second.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak out on what Jeremy had to say. This is, well, are you going to resecond the motion? I will second the motion.
Well, hold on, the motion was already made by Jeremy, seconded by Jill.
She withdrew her second.
Oh, okay.
So unless Liam wants to re-second the motion, it dies, and we move on.
He can't second it because he was not in the majority, so it would have to be.
Okay, so it would have to be Keith, and Jeremy made the motion, and Jill seconded. She withdrew her second, so it looks like at this time that motion dies for lack of a second, and we will move on.
You didn't get a second?
It did, but then she withdrew it because she didn't agree with seconding it anymore. So that is done, and we will move on to county matters. Item 4.3. All right, take the following actions regarding the establishment of cannabis processing regulations. 1, find the adoption of the proposed ordinance falls within the scope of the Cannabis Program Environmental Impact Report certified by the Board of Supervisors on December 21st, 2020. Waive the reading of and enact an ordinance adding Trinity County Code Section 17.43I regarding the establishment of cannabis processing regulations introduced on September 6, 2022, and direct staff to file a CEQA notice of determination within 5 days of final action by the Board of Supervisors. No fiscal impact.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisors. Drew Pavani, Environmental Compliance Specialist, Trinity County Planning Department Cannabis Division. I've been asked to present these 2 cannabis items, the one remaining in Sean Connell's absence. I believe this is just the second reading, and the only change that was made was changing the verbiage church to religious institution. I don't know if you have any other questions for me.
Does anyone have any technical questions of Drew before we open the public comment? Or is this a public hearing? Either way. All right, so.
I just wanted to clarify with council that that is not a significant change, so this is the second reading. Is that correct, council?
This is the second reading. I will provide some information at the next meeting about, and because I know Supervisor Cox has raised it, about what allows you to move from first to second, and it has nothing to do with whether it's a significant change. If an item is noticed for a first reading, the board has the opportunity to make changes. The only time it would have to be reheard is one, if it's so confusing that the clerk can't take all the items down. And so we need to make sure for clarity's sake that we have another opportunity, or if it triggers a planning, mandatory planning commission item that has not previously been discussed by them. So in this case, it did neither. We were able to take the notes clearly, and it was discussed in planning, so it's able to move to a second reading.
Thank you.
With that, we'll open the public comment on item 4.3.
I have no raised, I have one raised hand. Rhoda, sorry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Rhoda Payne. I'm from the Trinity Center area, and just want to talk about, okay, I'm going to discuss opt-out zones like usual. 17.43 or 17.43I.020 allowable zoning districts. This is on page 3. C, it says processing should not be allowed. Number 2, in the following areas which are in proximity to higher density populations. We all know that this is blatantly false information. I really wish that there could be findings based in fact. Opt-out zones need to be honored and regulated as they are written. I keep feeling like I'm the only person in this county that thinks our ordinances should be based in fact. I'm really tired of the blatant misinformation, propaganda, and lies that are written into the staff report and cannabis ordinances in Trinity County. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Chairman, I have no other raised hands and no new chats.
Seeing none in the room.
Apple, not a single person there.
With that, we will close the public comment and bring it back to the board. All right. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the motion as presented.
All right. Second? I'll second it.
Oh.
I was calling for a second.
I thought you were asking for one.
I'll second it.
But then I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Right, further discussion.
I'm trying to figure out her comment.
Oh, N02.
N02. Am I missing where it says opt-outs?
Council, is there legal contention with the opt-outs that have been identified? Is there a basis for legal contention?
So just so I can understand your question, are you asking, is there enough legal justification for opt-outs, or is it written in a way that would not be able to be challenged?
You can't write something that can't be challenged.
Well, we try to do that always, but you're right.
I'm not sure how to ask you the question because I'm not sure I fully understand the public comment.
Well, I'll speak for Rhoda here, which is always a dangerous thing for me to speak to anybody, but I think the heartburn is that she feels that these opt-outs aren't dense areas and that we've painted a broad brush with this, and that she feels that that's not accurate statement. But when I look at the ordinance, it doesn't, I'm missing the part where it says, residential areas is have proximity to higher density populations and therefore create a substantial risk. Granted that Trinity County's higher density population is not Los Angeles's viewpoint of that, and some of us feel that if I can see a neighbor within scope range, that's pretty dense. So I think Dan probably agreed with me on that. So I'm fine.
How do we fix that anyway? How do we identify that?
Well, we identified that in the general plan where we actually put zonings in for actual areas. So there really is no, and it is area-based. So what is public nuisance in one area is not public nuisance in another, and the only way to really do that is to do that through the zoning process, in my view.
So are we painting a broad stroke over this?
Well, her place I'm very familiar with. These are 10 and 20 acre parcels, but they're one after another, and there's 25 homes in 1.75 miles. Is that, what you decide is higher density population is, I think that yes, in a way we've painted a broad brush for communities to have say in what they want, and knowing that within 2 years we will go through a general plan process that communities, and we will be able to say, come up with zoning for where you can grow cannabis, and come up with findings for that. So
is there concern with on-site processing where we're cultivating and we want to process on that site? My understanding is you can process on any site you can cultivate on.
Your own stuff.
Your own, right.
That's self-processing.
Okay, so that's not the,
yeah, that's already the problem. They are grandfathered into where they're at. I think the term, I think Rhoda's heartburn is more not necessarily that she's going to put in a big processing plant. It's that in general she believes that opt-outs are, it's more of a general statement. Again, I'm speaking for her, and she will stop by my place tomorrow and tell me if I'm wrong or not.
So Keith, may I speak for the rest of the people, I guess, not her, and maybe her, but we're having a hard time struggling up here with figuring out what the terminology is and what is 10 or 20 acres. Is that high density, low density, middle density? So it seems to me we're painting it with kind of a broad stroke here until we get the general plan updated and what we could do then. So Maybe she's exactly right.
Well, right, you have communities that previously had stood up and said, okay, not in our communities. And so that is a broad brush, yes.
Very broad.
But without, you can also paint the broad brush that you don't have a general plan that says cannabis in it, and you can't allow any cannabis. So this is trying to walk the fine line of communities that want to get more in depth and understand and decide what their community wants. So there was several tacks. I mean, we're getting down in the weeds here. Several tacks we could have just come in and said, okay, ag only. And there was a lot of people that would have supported that. Well, I mean, we can relive this whole thing, but yeah, it is a broad brush, but it's a broad brush that has an answer to fix at some point in the future, in the next 2 years or 3 years.
At this time, what is our fix?
We have been through a process to get us here.
We're not going, if we try to fix this here, then we have other issues. So we use this opt-out language in all of our cannabis ordinances. I know there are people that don't like it, but that's how we got to the point where we have cannabis ordinances. I think without that opt-out language, we wouldn't have got there. So the way to fix it with the general plan update, we can do away with the opt-out language and have something that's be zoning based, which, while this may not be ideal, I think it's the only path forward at this point in time. Any further discussion? All right.
Chairman Frazier.
Aye.
Supervisor Brown.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox.
Aye.
Supervisor Kogan.
No.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. That. We will move to closed session. Item 5.1, Government Code Section 5495.4.5C, conference with legal counsel, initiation of litigation, number of cases 2. Is there any public comment on closed session?
I have no raised hands and no new chats, and
Everybody seems to be leaving. All right. That, we're adjourned. Closed session.
And Susie, can you email me a link?
yes.